Good morning, everybody. So welcome to Sunday Assembly. How many people are here for the first time? Excellent, wonderful, welcome. Thank you for joining us. Thanks so much for being here. So as you may have noticed, our motto is on the back wall: live better, help often, wonder more. That's what Sunday Assembly is all about. So just some reminders, the emergency exits are down here and through there. If everybody's cell phone is off, then we can proceed. Everybody, no drugging. So we are a secular congregation that celebrates life. Quick thank you to all the volunteers, everybody that helps set up before we start and put the stuff away after we're done, and all of the organizing in between. So please give it up for the volunteers. And also thank you to the Reason Center for letting us have this space every month. That makes a big difference in making our program happen. So as you may have noticed, our theme is about life. It's my life and making choices in our life. And so we're going to start off with a reading by Carly Beard.
And I'm going to be reading a poem by Ashley Brooks entitled Individuality. Why cry? The world turns on relentless of a tear of a broken soul and forges onward, breaking the barriers of yesterday. The past shatters, tiny fragments of the heart splinter into infinity as each person grasps at one more day. Revolution takes the revolve of a nation, but starts with each dream, brindled, broken, to ride. Trotting tamely down a windy path, to train, to tame, to restrain, and to kill. What difference is there? The mob tramples intuition under feet of brass. Each step a bruise, each step a scar. The scale is set, liberty and justice for all, or liberty and justice for one. What a lie the herd braves. There is no balance, only the choice to do. To cry does nothing. Weakness shines through the pretense of knowledge, corruption through the gauze of goodness, violence through the veil of negotiation. To weigh, to weigh. To cry for a nation so consumed with ills, or to cry for the self, crushed, fragile self. Soft petals reach skyward only to be trampled. Steel toes press hems, cold and unfamiliar, force reaching arms earthward. What good comes a mindless herd meanders through slowly backing fields? Nay, let each soul speak of its own, for its own, to its own. Let each shattered heart return splinters to their place. No herd can do for the soul what a soul can do for itself. Within each is instilled a seed it longs to grow, to spread branches over lofty mountains. Let it grow in each, and let it grow in it. Thank you.
That was beautiful, Carly. Thank you so much. So our main speaker today is Bill Piper, and he's here to talk about something that's really important. You know, it's important to have choices throughout our lives from beginning to end, and one of the most important times for people is often choosing how they want the end of their life to look, and what they want that to feel like and to be like. And so Bill Piper is a retired writer who has dedicated a portion of his life to advancing end-of-life care options. He's a former political appointee for the State Department of Education, and he's here to talk about compassionate choices today. So please welcome Bill Piper.
Well, good morning. I'm very pleased to be here, although I found your speaker guidelines to be a little intimidating because I'm supposed to be upbeat and inspiring on a topic that doesn't often lend itself to that. But I thought I could start with the idea that there's bad news and good news. The bad news being that we are all, every single one of us in this room, going to die at some point. The good news is that we don't know how or when. And that would mean that every day we do have is that much more special, I think. But look, this is the Reason Center. We believe in statistics, right? So when you get to be 65 and over, your odds of dying are 100 times greater than if you were, say, 25 and younger. So there's a very strong distribution toward the upper end. At the lower end, death will come usually by a mishap of some kind, car wrecks, whatever, a falling piano. I've seen it in the Marx Brothers anyway. But anyway, as you get older, it's much more likely to come from some form of disease. And this will mean that for the great majority of us, since we're 100 times more likely to die that way, the great majority of us, this will find us in a hospital of some, or in some medicalized setting. And what we need to remember really is that we still have choices to make this end game as positive as it can be. I would hope that everybody in this room, at least above 25 or so, would have an advanced directive of some kind already in place. That will provide detailed instructions for your medical care as you reach the end of life. In addition, California now has something called the POLST, Physician's Order for Life-Sustaining Treatment, that your doctor signs, basically giving force to your advanced directive. So we're in, right now, a minority of states that even go that far. So we're not in bad shape. Other things under California law that are permitted are hospice care, comfort care, which typically means, which does mean, that you aren't going to have curative treatment, you're going to have palliative treatment of some kind, just simply to make things easier. And I had a close friend, Ed, in Grass Valley, who died in hospice in January, as peacefully as you could script it. So hospice can be a wonderful thing. It usually includes some sort of palliative pain management, morphine or other opiate-type drugs. But even in a hospital setting, you are allowed to choose to cease eating or drinking. And my mother-in-law in 2007 chose that option. I think she would have liked to have had another option, but of those available to her, it took her 19 days for her life to end under those circumstances. But nonetheless, she was very, very brave and forthright about it, and that was her choice. You can also, even in a hospital setting, order the removal of all devices or medicines and just, and simply accept the end. Doctors are often reluctant to do this, but it is your right to have them do. And often they will provide physicians terminal sedation, which basically knock you out until the end comes. Although not all medical conditions will respond to terminal sedation. In some cases, pain continues. But the key point is that all of these things can now be requested by the patient under current law. And several of them most certainly hasten death. They'll bring death on when death otherwise might not be right at hand. And the treating physician can initiate at least 2 of these, if it's in their best judgment that, under medical futility, they can unhook you from devices and treatments, even without your consent. But there's one legal option we don't have in California, which Oregon and 4 other states now do have. And Oregon is really the signal case because they've had this in their law up there for now 17 years of experience. So I'd like to talk a little bit about the difference between what's permitted in Oregon, which the term I like most is medical aid in dying, rather than say physician-assisted suicide, which is what people who are opposed to it usually, that's the term that they usually choose. Even though the American Psychological Association has since 1997 differentiated between hastening death for an already terminally ill person and a person ending their own life who otherwise would go on living. The 4 main arguments against laws like this are that human life, there's the religious argument, that human life and death are the exclusive province of God, and that mortals are not to mess around in those areas. And I think If you believe that, then this option is not for you. I don't know that if you believe that, you would have the right to impose it by law on others who don't believe that, but it's a sufficient reason if you do believe that. More normally, you hear the moral and ethical agreements that it's simply morally wrong to assist in someone's death. For instance, I couldn't contract with one of you to kill me, and we would both sign the contract, or I could kill you. That's a non-binding contract under California law. You can't do that. And most cases of someone asking A, asking B to kill them, well, that's prima facie evidence that B is not of sound mind and can't make that request because it's not a sensible request. Then there's the pragmatic arguments, and these used to hold, I used to give these considerable weight. That's the idea that vulnerable people will be coerced into ending their life when they don't wish to, or that it will cause what the opponents like to say is a slippery slope, that soon will be expanding the categories and more people will be blanketed into this. I no longer give these arguments any weight because 17 years of experience in Oregon simply doesn't show that that's happening. Oregon has among the best hospice care of the 50 states. Oregon, the law is rarely used there even though it's permitted. Less than 0.3% of all deaths in Oregon in any given year result from the law. And even at that, more people are given a life-ending prescription than ever take it. Only about 2/3 of the people who obtain the prescription legally then proceed to use it because it's insurance for them. They don't need to use it, and so they don't. That's the point. There's also an argument from medical practice. The doctor's role is to heal and do no harm. Just simply precludes doctors from writing a prescription like this because death is deemed to be the ultimate harm. But when somebody is already terminally ill and has made the decision that they can't tolerate their circumstances any longer, I don't think you can argue that death is the ultimate harm. People do make that argument, but I don't find it persuasive. But the thing that has really impressed itself on me is that this goes on in California and every other state. Below the radar, extra legally, unregulated. And I find that thought to be very troubling, really. So let me tell you how the Oregon law works, and I'll try to be brief because I know I have a limited time here. But in Oregon, an adult, 18 years or over, who is mentally competent and has 6 months or less to live, may request from their physician a prescription that they would then self-administer at a time and place of their own choosing. The Oregon law, by the way, prevents this from being done in a public place like a park or whatever. I mean, obviously, among the bad consequences would be that you don't want people sort of doing this in the middle of the public square just to call attention to themselves. But it's basically a very simple thing, and it is patient-driven. So that's what makes it slot in with all those other choices I mentioned that are patient-driven. You can already choose, as I've said, to stop eating or drinking or have medical devices removed. In Oregon, they're allowed to choose this other option as well. Because on the dark side, where this is unregulated and occurs in all states, as I say, I know of 3 instances myself. You deal with them because it's illegal in all the states where I know. And if I know 3, probably many people in this room know 3 or more. And so I want to leave you with the thought, really, that wouldn't it be better to bring this out of the shadows and have it be above board and regulated? Much less likelihood that coercion or these other negative effects would occur. And so that's as upbeat as I can make it. Thank you so much.
bit of business. We like to have a member of our congregation get up and share a little bit about doing their best at this point in our assembly. So please help me welcome Dylan McDonald to talk about doing his best.
So you know when you get a phone call at 6 a.m. on a Sunday morning that the news is never going to be good, right? And so about 2 years ago I answered the phone and it was my oldest sister calling to tell me that she had just spent the night in the hospital with my mother, who is 70, and that it wasn't a good diagnosis. She was having trouble breathing, and after being there for about 10 hours, there was a preliminary diagnosis of breast cancer. And so instead of packing, I was to leave on a week-long trip to Mexico, I found myself driving 9 hours back to Idaho to talk with my family. And so when you're driving through the deserts of Nevada and Oregon and Idaho, you have a lot of time to think. There's not a whole lot out there. And so based on the information that I had received from my siblings, I was sitting there thinking, why did my mother make the choices that she did? She was claiming to have known that she had, knowledge that there was something wrong with her, but she chose not to do anything about it. And that was hard to try and grapple and understand, because of course, that's your mother, that's your family, and why wouldn't she want to fight this? Why didn't she want to try and stay as long as she could with us? But I've come to speak with her many times about this and respect her decision. But what it did do was it forced me to look at my own mortality. I always think of your parents being there. Now both of my parents are facing these end-of-life issues, and so then I started, I'm up next, I'm on deck now. And then it caused like a musical chair type thing that happened in my mother's home. She was actually caring for my 96-year-old grandfather at the time, and so another family member had to come and move him into his home, her home, while then my oldest sister ended up basically purchasing the home that I grew up in, and was then going to help take care of my mother. And when she's downsizing to prepare for my sister's family to move in, then it's just a weird thing to start divvying up things, all these life's possessions. It just seems really odd. And then to plan a funeral, right? A lot of people don't really think about that, but to sit there with your mom and my siblings and plan, what is it that she wants in her funeral? The big challenge was negotiating the different types of beliefs. My family are practicing Mormons, I'm not. And so it's something where, you have to be respectful and understand that, this isn't an appropriate time to be arguing certain things. It's more about what she wants. But it did cause some things where, like, my oldest sister says, how sad it is for me because, this is all that there is for me. Like, when she's gone, that's it. Whereas they believe, we're going to see her in the next life. I just thought that was kind of a weird thing to say. But in my professional life, I'm a historian, and so I really am a big proponent of documenting and recording history. And both my parents, I learned that from them. My dad was a teacher of history, and my mom also taught. And one of the things that once my mother started realizing that she had limited time is, as we didn't know this, but she had hoarded a lot of our life down in the basement. Each of her children, she has 6 kids, had a box of all this stuff that she had just put in there. And so she went together and put like anywhere from 6 to 10 scrapbooks for each of her kid of all these materials, and we received that as a Christmas gift last year, and that was a whole lot of fun to go through this stuff that you hadn't seen in years, share memories. So I started to think, how can I best provide for the needs of my mother, the needs of my siblings who are undergoing the same process that I am, kind of a pre-grieving, I guess you could call it, and how was I grappling with this myself? And so, I wasn't prepared to do the Mormon thing, which they were all doing, and that was praying and fasting and going to church, and that was fine for them. But I decided, I needed to try and do something that could speak their language, and so I did do something that was a Mormon thing, although not quite explicitly, and that is I decided that I was going to do an oral history with my mother. Mormons They're very big into recording their own histories and things. And so I decided that that's what I would attempt to do. I had done those professionally before, but never with anyone who was a family member, which is a challenge. And not normally something you would, as an academic, request someone to do because they're too associated with the topic. But for those of you who don't know, an oral history is basically just a recorded interview with a person, either about a specific topic or about their life story, and usually they either do it with a cassette tape or perhaps a video camera to record that, and then they may transcribe it or post it somewhere online for people to view. So I decided that I was going to come up with a list of questions, and I came up with about 4 pages of questions. And online there's a lot of primers if you're interested in doing this. Plenty of information that can help someone who's interested in doing that. You don't have to be an expert in doing it. You may have to have some equipment, but you can actually do it with your smartphone at a minimum, record things. So I sent that list of questions to her about 2 weeks in advance so she could have just some time to think about what it is that she wanted to say. And then last month I flew up to Idaho and sat down with her over a 2-day period and recorded about 5 hours of interview. And of course she thought when we started, oh, I'm not going to have much to say, it will be done in 45 minutes. But once you prompt someone, it's not like a journalistic interview. You're just prompting them as they move along and tell stories about their life. So it was a whole lot of fun for me to sit there one-on-one with her to do these interviews as we go over her birth and upbringing in a working-class household in a railroad town of Hopedale, Idaho. Her attending college at Idaho State University, where she met my father and their courtship, the birth of her 6 kids, and it was really special for her to go and talk individually about each one of her kids. And I know that my siblings are going to, once they see that, they're going to really appreciate it, that she really spoke about each one of them and what made them special to her. And then her career as an educator. She spent 40 years with her own private school and educating a lot of kids in the town that we lived in. It was also interesting to hear her talk about her own life, how she thought and reflected back on what had happened, what her current situation was, her strength of character, and then, of course, I had to ask about her faith. I let her talk about that, how that guides her. So it was fun to hear stories that either I had never heard or had not heard in a long time. Things like she and her older brother, when they were about 10 and 12, cornered their little sister and decided they were going to drop her through the laundry chute down the basement. And the consequences of that, when she actually caught her leg on a nail and it tore her, had to get stitches. Or the time when she was walking home from school, and again, she was from a working class family, and her slip was so old and the elastic had given way as she was walking, and of course there was a group of boys behind her, and her slip just fell to the ground, but she just kept walking. She was too proud to stop and pick it up, So, and then another funny thing that really kind of summarizes my parents' relationship was the first date that they went on. They went to see a movie, I don't remember which one, but when it was time to pay, it was my mother that had to pay, not my dad, and she said, that should have been an omen to me about what the relationship was going to be like. But anyway, so, I have that. Now what I plan to do is edit that and post it on my own Vimeo account and send it out to family and friends who are interested. But, for me, nothing indicates that there's anything more than this life. This is what we have. So, I just encourage you to record and document your memories, whether yours, your family members, friends. Read them, share them, cherish them. I'm trying to do my best to meet the needs at this time for my mother and for my siblings and for myself. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that, Dylan. So at this point, we are going to take a moment in a moment, we'll take a moment to just think about what we've talked about today. There's a lot, and so whatever stuck out to you, whatever felt most relevant or touched you the most, just take a couple of minutes in silence to think and reflect. Just one more thank you to our speakers today. I know that the things that they were talking about are not easy to talk about, but it was very moving, and I think they gave everyone a lot to think So thank you so much for sharing your stories and your thoughts. And now I'm going to hand the presentation over to David.
Thank you. How about a round of applause to Sarah for stepping up to be our speaker today? Doing a great job, as well as Gretchen and Sarah and everyone else from the music committee who's helped choose some of the songs, all the songs for today and all the other events that we've had. Let's show them some appreciation as well. I just want to also thank everyone who's donated and supported Sunday Assembly in the last couple of months. This is April now, which means I think this is our 8th month of existence. And we're doing great. I want to thank our treasurer back there for keeping us honest and filing all the right papers. And now that we're an official 501c3, that means that your donations to us for this year are all tax deductible. So a minute will give you an opportunity to support us. And of course, if you don't do it today, you're always welcome to do it online just as well. And if you can't, you can. And we understand that. For those of us who can, it certainly is appreciated as well. And that money goes towards things like providing child care activities, arts and crafts that are over there, to support the Reason Center for letting us use the room that's here, advertising for Sunday Assembly on Meetup and Facebook, and of course all the paperwork that's required to have a 501c3. So thank you all for supporting us in that way. All of our financial information, all of our bylaws, all that kind of stuff is available on our Meetup site. And if you ever have any questions, just talk to anybody that's on the Board of Trustees. We can help you out with that. So we're going to continue on and do a little icebreakers. You guys, I think, all know how this goes. So let's get everybody to stand up. And we're going to do the rock, paper, scissors thing one more time here. Let's get a little music going, and then we'll... There it is. Let's pass those hats, support Sunday Assembly, and do a little rock, paper, scissors. And thank you again to Gretchen and Sarah for making us all listen to Hanson at Sunday Assembly. And thanks to everyone who helped contribute to Sunday Assembly. Again, I appreciate that. We're going to do a couple quick announcements, and then after that, we've got our final song and our potluck, of course. I want to remind everybody to please, if you're not already, follow us on Facebook and on Twitter. Use our Meetup page. If you ever want to coordinate carpools or ask a question or mention what you're bringing to the potluck, you can do that as well. How many people took our survey in the last month? Okay, that's what I thought. So I'm going to send that link out again to everybody. If you already took it, great, you're off the hook. For everybody else, I'm sure you have a great excuse. The internet wasn't working for the whole month, or you just didn't get like the 5 emails that I sent out. It's fine, it's cool, I'm in your spam folders, but that's okay. If you get a chance, it'll literally take 5 minutes to do. Just ask you a couple quick questions about the experience of Sunday Assembly and what we can do to improve it, to make it better, to fill up these seats and let everyone have the best time that they can. For those of you who did take the survey, thank you so much for doing that. A lot of really cool events up in your program there on that back page. I want to talk about SMOOPs real quick. SMOOPs are small groups that are formed within Sunday Assembly that you guys run and maintain. And those of us on the board, we just help you promote them. Anybody here who wants to can create their own small group. If you're into knitting or arts and crafts, or you want to have like a vegan monthly potluck at your home, or maybe some kind of like monthly movies exposition or something like that, or let's go to the zoo with some kids. Anything along those lines that anybody wants to do, all you have to do is head over to the Meetup page, and right there where it says schedule a new meetup, you just got to click on that from the home page, schedule a new meetup, a little pop-up will come open, you type in a couple things about what it is you want to do, fill it in, set a date, at a location, and that's it. Once you've done that, that sends an email over to me and some of the other administrators. We just double check it for spelling, add a cool picture, and out it goes to the entire congregation. And if it's something that you want to do monthly, then we just check another box and it happens automatically once a month. And so I really do encourage you guys to get those going. It makes Sunday Assembly even more exponentially better when we have more stuff going on throughout the month. And for those of you who've done this already, thank you so much. So there's that going on. There's a couple of events. Can I borrow your program? A couple of events I wanted to draw attention to. First of all, we're going to take a little field trip to Oakland in May and check out the East Bay Sunday Assembly. Your speaker is going to be me, so that's why I'm promoting it. I'm going to talk about Camp Quest and how we develop curriculum for kids to make science and learning fun. You can check that out. But it's always fun to see what our neighbors are doing over in Oakland. There's a Sunday Assembly in San Jose, and we've gone and checked them out as well. So that's happening next month. And a couple other things. Atheists and other free thinkers are organizing a highway cleanup at the end of April. Here at the Reason Center, there's going to be a board game night Wednesday evening at the end of April. There's a very important secular lobby day, and so for all of us who are interested in secular rights and expressing our voices, letting them be heard to those of us who we've elected or didn't vote for, but either way, we want to make sure that they know how we feel about some of the issues that are happening right now in the state. That's your opportunity to really get out there and tell them how you feel about some of these issues. That'll be followed up by a rally for secular rights, both events taking place at the Capitol on May 7th, the Thursday. And if you can't go during the day for the lobby day, definitely make it out there during the evening and help out and participate with that rally. And then finally, many of you are familiar with the podcast out of Austin, Texas, The Atheist Experience. And Tracy Harris from that podcast is going to be right here in this room in the middle of May, and so you can check out her presentation as well. All of these events are up online at the Sacramento Coalition of Reason's website. That's Sacramento COR. And so if they're not on our meetup site, then they're on the Sacramento Coalition of Reason's site. So I do encourage you to check that out. And the most important announcement is that starting in June, we're going to be moving Sunday assemblies to the second Sunday. Right now they're on the third Sunday. And so we're going to do that to avoid a couple conflicts with some big holidays and also some events that are happening elsewhere in Sacramento. And so make sure that for May, you're still here on the third Sunday, starting June for the rest of the year, second Sunday. So that's about it. One more hand for Sarah for being our MC and giving us back to her.